Swadika, good evening and welcome to this edition of Thai PBS World Tonight with us.
Swadika, very good evening as well. I kick-starting the program tonight with the latest on the COVID-19 situation in Thailand. And as expected, because of the daily new infections that are still really high, Bangkok has decided to cancel all of the Chinese New Year celebrations to prevent the further spread of the coronavirus. So as we said, Chinese New Year celebrations in Bangkok will be canceled again this year to prevent the further spread of COVID-19, particularly the spread of the Omicron variant. The Bangkok Metropolitan Administration decided to cancel the celebrations for another year. However, decorations and street lightings at Chinatown will still be on display, especially along Yawarat Road and the Odeon Circle. The BMA also noted that Chinese New Year rituals and traditions can still proceed as normal with COVID-19 preventive measures in place. Chinese New Year for this year falls on February 1st, and normally Bangkok's Chinatown would hold public celebrations for the occasion, such as dragon dances, traditional performances, as well as food markets. But we have to admit that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many of these celebrations have been canceled.
And meanwhile, we are also expecting some new measures, being implemented, being announced actually tomorrow. So the CCSA will decide whether, for example, there would be a resumption of a new test and go registration, which have been suspended since December, as well as COVID-19 rezoning and yet another extension of the nationwide state of emergency that is in place since March 2020. Actually, it has been almost 2 years. So with the new applications of the test and go, which actually requires only minimal quarantine of, let's say, 1 night, while you have to await negative COVID results, were suspended just before the new year to curb the spread of the Omicron. And people who have been granted Thailand Pass QR codes for the program can still enter the country even now as the moment we're speaking. But the program resumption of accepting new applications actually may begin on February 1st, and possibly with stricter measures coming with it as well. So according to Secretary General of National Security Council, who's also the head of the CCSA's Operations Center, the easing of restrictions on the test and go travelers is intended to help boost, of course, the struggling, some may say dying, or even some may even say dead. But of course, very vital tourism sector, which, in pre-COVID times actually contributed to up to 20% of the GDP. So that we will respect tomorrow the decision to ease some restrictions even more, for example, declaring more areas the sandbox and tourism pilot provinces, for example. But some bad news for party goers and drinkers, because the reopening of bars, pubs, karaoke bars, for example, which were supposed, initially to reopen by the middle of this month, and the deadline of which had already passed. Actually, they will still remain closed because this reopening will not be discussed, not be in the agenda in the meeting tomorrow. But fear not, because actually they are allowed to still open and operate as eateries or restaurants. And actually a lot of bars and pubs have been doing just that. So maybe your favorite spot is still there. And as for the emergency decree, of course, the National Security Chief insisted the measure is still necessary and to actually implement a lot of these COVID measures, even though it has been there for almost 2 years. So something to look forward to tomorrow, to closely observe what's going to change.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure that many people are anticipating the CCSA's announcement as to what they will do with the Test to Go program, as well as the restrictions on COVID-19, especially the fact that the state of emergency has been extended several times since March 2020. And as we previously said, many people were not so happy about it to begin with.
Exactly. And just to give you, some clarification, if you wonder why, this whole state of emergency has to be extended frequently, is because according to the law, they can actually invoke the emergency decree only 90 days per round. So that's why it's, only a few more months extension. But
Right.
of course, we'll have to wait and see. Today, the COVID figures actually bounced back a little bit to over 7,000 cases after a couple of days of, 6,000 something cases. So it's too soon to tell, and let's see tomorrow. And speaking of, what the authorities have come up with, even though the emergency decree is likely to be in place still, and even though some places may still have to close, or even there's no Chinese New Year celebrations, for example, the government is still hoping that wealthy foreigners actually will come to Thailand, actually more of them, and not just come here as just, visitors and tourists, but actually to stay with the long-term visa. So the cabinet has approved the plans just in principle. So we just have to await the ministerial announcement to allow specific groups of foreigners to Thailand to stay up to 10 years. Of course, in the hopes that they would spend here with their wealth, and not just spend, but invest more in Thailand as well, especially with their professional or special set of skills, for example. So according to Deputy Government spokesperson Dr. Rashida Tanadirek, the specific foreigners to be targeted are the wealthy people or wealthy pensioners, professionals who want to work from Thailand, and highly skilled professionals. All these people will be granted long-term residence visas, or as we call LTV, which are actually good for 10 years, but there is a bit of pause of every 5 years, when after the first 5 years, you have to extend it for 5 more years. And so if you believe you're one in these groups, you can apply for a qualification certificate by providing evidence and relevant documentation to prove your status with the Thai Board of Investment, or BOI, or if you're abroad, you can do so at Thai embassies and consuls abroad. And for those who obtain the certificate, can apply for the long-term visa, not just for themselves, but also that escorts. So it can be family members, your spouses, for example. The visa fee is 10,000 baht for each applicant per year, and this is actually paid when you have to report to the authorities once a year already to confirm the place of residence. And with the certificate, foreign professionals who want to work from Thailand can apply for a work permit as well. And this is, of course, to boost Thailand's economy. So the work permit for a foreigner under an employment contract will last as long as the duration of the contract itself, but not exceeding 5 years. You can also extend it in line with the contractual period, but no more than 5 years again. And the work permit will expire at the time of the expiration of the residence visa. And if you fail to comply with all these requirements, you may be disqualified qualified. And meanwhile, the visa type can also be changed. If you think that, okay, you don't want this long-term visa anymore, you can also try to get a different type of visa as well, but it has to be in accordance with immigration rules. So there you go. So new plans to attract, investments, spendings, or international money. But of course, we do want not just money, though. Also highly skilled professionals in the country as well to help drive the economy forward. Well, that's exciting, but some people might cry afoul that, hey, we're not in the target group, so can we apply? Actually, there'll be a set of requirements, something more specific that we can present as well to see if you're qualified. For example, the list from the BOI. But not to worry, without this visa, there's still other ways to actually, stay long term. A lot of people have done so in this country.
And we previously reported as well that Thailand, particularly Bangkok, is actually one of the top destinations for people who want to retire as well. So probably with the rankings and the incentives here will hopefully attract the foreigners who want to do long stay in Thailand. And another big story in politics today, a new political party has been officially introduced, which consists of two former ministers from the so-called Sikuman faction. And this party, we can say that it will be in direct competition with the ruling Palang Pracharat party, where the two politicians used to be. And of course, this party will not nominate Prayut Chan-o-cha as the country's leader for another term. So the former leading members of the ruling Palang Pracharat party have formed a new political party, Sang Anakot Thai, and they vowed not to nominate Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha as the party's prime ministerial candidate so that he can return for another term as the prime minister. Speaking to reporters at the formal launch of the party today, former Finance Minister Uttama Sawanayon, the key founder of the party, made clear that a suitable candidate for the next prime minister must be a person who is internationally recognized, able to bring Thailand out of internal conflicts, and capable of running the country. He also said that the party is looking at 3 or 4 candidates who have such qualifications, but he declined to mention the names. With several business executives joining the party, Uttama made clear that the main objective of Sang Anakot Thai is to revive the economy and to build a foundation for sustainable economic growth, citing the party's mobilization of qualified and resourceful people from various sectors and disciplines to join the party to solve all the pressing problems and achieve its goal of raising people's quality of life. He also affirmed the party will neither be in the extreme right or extreme left, as it does not seek to be part of or contribute to the deeply entrenched political divide.
And meanwhile, Kun Sontirat announced that since most of the party's founders are not professional politicians, they do not actually crave power for the sake of it. So the party unveiled, not just business executives, but also over a dozen of co-founders of different educational and professional backgrounds who actually share the same aspiration. That's quite interesting. Just to give you some background, basically, these two ex-Palang Pracharat executives were the ones actually campaigning, doing their best, lobbying and everything to get General Prayut to be a prime minister candidate for the party, actually. So this is really interesting where, just a few years that they have turned, to Well, we can say the other side, but not actually, the other side where they did say that they not belong to, extreme left or right. But at least it's quite a U-turn to see them, turn back on Kun Prayut, especially, no wonders, maybe people would just say, after, a leadership shake-up within the Palang Pracharat that they help found, and you get sort of kicked out from the leadership of the party, and then they stage a walkout soon after from the party that, okay, if you don't need us, we're not staying here. And then they actually proved today that they don't really need the people in the old party. Quite
Exactly. Well, it just reaffirms the tensions within the Palang Pracharat party, and with the statement that they will never nominate Prayut Chan-o-cha as the prime ministerial candidate. That is a very strong move right here, Kunatai, because that is pretty much a U-turn from the previous election where they actually were really supporting Prayut to become the prime minister at that time. And for them to create a new political party, that is a big U-turn right here. So it's just like they're going against the Palang Pracharat party where they used to be.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Because, time only proves all the politicians' promises.
Yes.
So, moving on in an economic story, but of course with a political touch, because we're talking about controversial figure, exiled former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. So even if he's talking about the economy or business, it's still deemed quite political. So he actually said yesterday that there are actually 4 or 5 major pork merchants who have cold storage facilities in Thailand with a capacity of, almost 400,000 kilograms of frozen pork that can store them for up to 6 months, and that they have been hoarding the pork for profiteering. So during his talk in the Care Talk X-Care Clubhouse chat room yesterday, Thaksin, who is actually known online, especially on Clubhouse, as Tony Woodsum, or some may call him P. Tony, he said there is insufficient pork to meet domestic demand. Of course, we all know that is because the death of many breeder pigs from diseases, but that's actually not all. And there are actually things that the government can do. For example, in the short term, to allow import of live pigs from abroad, and as a long-term solution, accelerate the number of breeders. Small and medium-sized pig farmers should also be compensated for the pigs that died because of the pandemic. He also suggested the government officials talk with these so-called merchants, ask them to release their pork stocks into the market to ease the pork shortage. Of course, at least temporarily, while waiting for the imported live pigs to arrive, and waiting for the piglets to mature enough, well, sadly, but in reality, to be slaughtered. So he recommended the government to try to reduce pig farmers' production costs, but with all the means possible. For example, they can actually use a tax exemption that can help these farmers a little bit more. So, of course, this former prime minister said he disagrees with Commerce Ministry's plan that we actually reported yesterday to use 1.4 billion baht from the central fund to buy chicken. So actually, chicken is kind of overpriced too at several places, and what the government would do is actually to subsidize it by buying from them at high price and sell to the public at low prices. But Kun Thaksin called this actually a waste of money.
Well, we have to say that with the pigs issue has somehow been politicized in recent weeks as well, because it has to do with the way the government deals with the whole situation.
Right.
And it has been reported that the opposition parties will be submitting a motion to the House Speaker this Friday, seeking a general debate against the government over this issue as well, including the African swine fever, which led to the death of pigs, apart from the handling of the economy, as well as the way they dealt with the pandemic as well. So it has been politicized in a way, whether it's about economics or with the increase of prices with the food ingredients. And now let's move on to this story. If you're a bookworm, this may be good news for you, because this year's National Book Fair will be held in March and April this year, but not at an exhibition center, but at Bang Sue Grand Station, which is where the vaccination center is at the moment. So the State Railway of Thailand, or the SRT, has approved the use of Bang Sue Grand Station for Thailand's annual book fair, which will be held between March 26th and April 5th, while reassuring the public that the event will not affect the government's vaccination operations at the site. So the SRT governor, Nirut Manipan, revealed that the approval of the event will help increase the number of commuters along the suburban train line, commonly known as the Red Line, as the fair will be held in the area near Gate 1, which is the Red Line zone. So in previous years, as many as 3 million people attended the National Book Fair and the International Book Fair. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of visitors have dropped substantially. So currently, the vaccination center at Bang Sue Grand Station occupies no more than 20,000 square meters out of a total area of 50,000. At the same time, the number of daily commuters along the suburban line has reduced to about 7,000 to 8,000 due to the COVID-19 spread and the work from home measures, which is a significant drop since the official launch of the train line last November, where there were more than 10,000 daily commuters. So this is definitely an exciting news for bookworms out there, but just a bit of a change with the venue, but we can expect a lot of quality books right there, whether it's Thai books or books from other countries that are in this event.
Yeah. And, for just to be in a bookshop, not to mention a book fair, gives a sense of feelings of, I don't know, calmness to me at least. I don't know about other people, but, and the smell of the books.
Yeah.
Because people can say that, okay, they can just read it off, their phones or a Kindle. But there's just a different feeling when you actually get to read a physical book. That's something else.
Yeah, it's of course a different feeling, because when you read something off your phone or your tablet devices, you get this eye strain sometimes, and you feel some sort of headache after reading for long hours. So if you do need some time away from the screen, then have a great book to read. That is like a great way to take some time off, because nowadays we're too addicted to digital devices, and many people have decided to turn to books instead, so that they can keep calm and just focus on the text that is there and practice their imagination. And like you said, Kunatai, you like this idea of sniffing the scent of the books and just the sound of flipping through the pages. That's just something that many people like us used to like when we were like teens, to be honest.
Exactly. Well, to each their own, but you know where to go at least.
Yeah.
And with that, we wrap up this edition of Thai PP as well tonight. Do catch us like this every weekday at 7 p.m. right here on Facebook and YouTube Live.
And don't forget to follow us on social media, including our website, thaipbsworld.com, for all the latest updates as well as analyses. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and we'll see you tomorrow. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ